All right, here we are, another Thursday night. I got stuck late at my clinic, so broadcasting from the clinic in Tennessee. All right, so tonight, it's been a while since I took questions, so I want to give an opportunity for you guys to bring up the topic and let me know if you have any questions, maybe even when we had Lee Lauscher with his seminar, if you have any questions on that, it's all welcome, it's all good. So remember, questions are just, my answers are just my answers. Your questions ultimately have to find out your own answers, right? Through experience. We try to promote people figuring out their own answers, really. So I just provide my background. And if it helps, you try. If it helps, great. If not, then you have to find your own way. But I always try, and anyway, before I take a question, because it came up a few times today in the clinic, you got to realize that when I'm in clinic treating with Chinese medicine, I'm the same person teaching Bagua. So everything about what I'm telling patients is based on natural principles. So I always fall back on natural principles. And one of the things that comes up a lot is food. And I'll get questions because people read all different books and all that stuff. And you can go to an old bookstore, I don't know, Barnes and Noble when it's open or whatever, and you've got rows of books on just nutrition. So many different opinions. Well, what's the most natural thing? You see, if you understand natural law, it's going to always, it's like a litmus test for any question. And we can go in the lab and we can overthink everything. We can have all these hypotheses of what's true. But in my experience, at least, if you can stick closest to what's most natural, you can't go wrong. And the human body developed over 1,000 years ago, more than that. We were hunter-gatherers. So all we really have to know is what hunter-gatherers did and stay as close as possible to that. And you'll start to find that a lot of what we believe today is nothing but theory and a lot of times wrong. And then if we base all our medicine and treatment on what's wrong, how can we ever get to the root of the problem? We can't. So people have this symptom or that symptom, like taking Tylenol for a headache. Why do you get headaches? If you don't treat the why you get headaches, you'll take Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever forever. You had a headache, take a pill. Had a headache, take a pill. Get to the root of the problem. And then you don't have that problem anymore. Because all these different kinds of pills, inoculations, whatever, they all have harmful effects. Get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is toxicity in the body, stress in the body. Are you adding stress from emotional situations? Or are you adding stress from, too much alcohol, too much caffeine, too much processed foods, all these things? Like, you're creating an inflammatory environment that your body has to constantly detox from. And when it's detoxing, you feel terrible. So no pill can fix that. Your body has to go through the detoxification process. So I just wanted to mention that my answers come from natural principles, and this is decades of studying what is most natural. I'll even include, if you want to name, someone I studied a lot was Weston Price, who was a dentist who traveled the world studying the nutritional practices of native people. And this was in the early 1900s when he did that, when there were more still around. And no matter where he was in the world, all over, same principles. They either hunted and gathered, or they fished and they gathered. They got their animal foods or fish, and they got wild edibles. And that's it. In agriculture, if you look at the length of time, how our physiology developed, agriculture is about this much. It's a very tiny part of it. So even though it was 10,000 years ago, it's not long at all with how our bodies developed. Our bodies need what our bodies need. It's like if you have a pet. This is why it's difficult sometimes to have a conversation, because vets may disagree, or what people read may disagree, whatever. But ultimately, if you have a dog or a cat, well, what would they eat in nature? That's the answer to what you should be feeding them. They are carnivores. What do carnivores eat? And if you give them anything that's not in the carnivore's diet, you can make them sick. Their physiology cannot handle those things you're giving them. And if you're giving them all this processed stuff or these dry pellets from a bag, you're poisoning this pet that you love so much. And I hate to put it that way. I don't mean to be abusive with my words, but you're breaking natural laws. And so if you think of Taoism, the closer you can get to Tao, which means nature, the healthier you'll be, the less trouble you'll have in life. The further from Tao, the further from nature, the further from natural principles, the more problems you'll have. And in the case of a pet, for example, giving them the wrong food, more vet bills, hundreds and thousands of dollars. Person needs all kinds of health care. What's everybody's big concern? Healthcare, healthcare. Why do you need so much healthcare? I haven't seen a doctor in 40 years. I mean, I had a appendicitis one time, so I went to the hospital because that's an emergency situation. But for general health, why I never need a doctor? Why I never need a dentist? The professionals will be like, that's crazy. But is it? I'll tell you something very interesting. I'll tell you something very interesting with Weston Price. He was a dentist, and he would go through thousands of native people, and he would check their teeth. And out of 1,000 people, he might find one partial cavity. They never brushed their teeth. They had no dentist. Their teeth, they never had braces, and all their teeth were perfectly straight. Right down the line, every single one. Their sinus cavities were all open and clear. One of the things he said was how beautiful they were. And so what I got from that is the body has a blueprint. And if you want to build a great building, you make a blueprint, you need all the right building materials, or that thing will come crashing down. So no matter how good the blueprint, you still make a big mess. You can't build a house with cardboard. So if you give the right building blocks, the body has a blueprint that came from the divine. Okay? Our body, a cat's body, a tiger's body, a dog's body, whatever. It has a perfection. And then we can mess it up by not giving it what it needs. I mean, what just came to mind was, I'm not sure if I remember the animal, but it might have been pigs. So they blinded the pig, and the pig had offspring, and of course the offspring could see. I don't remember how or why they blinded it, but the offspring could see. And something like a vitamin A deficiency can cause blindness. So if you don't have any vitamin A and you have an offspring, your offspring could be blind. So it can be as simple as that, having the right foods that give you that nutrient. And there's many, many accounts of these things. There was a pilgrim type person just traveling, and there was a Native American following him. And this guy was in trouble. And that's why the Native American was following him. This is going back hundreds of years. This is a great story. And the guy was losing his sight. He was stumbling around and he was losing his sight. He was going blind. Pretty much was blind because it was a progressive illness because of a deficiency. The Native American killed, I don't know, buffalo or deer, whatever it was, and he cut open and gave him the adrenal glands above the kidneys and told him to eat that. And the guy's eyesight started to come back. This I read many years ago in a letter. This is from hundreds of years ago, maybe 1600s or something. The Native American wasn't in a lab. They didn't find vitamin C, but they knew intuitively that that would help bring his eyes back because he knew he was deficient in that. He wasn't eating that. I don't know how you explain it other than nature knows what to do. But we get in the way with our thinking. We're so smart that we screw everything up and make all our problems. That's really the whole point of getting closer to Tao, is getting out of your way, getting out of your own way, being unattached to results. You play life hard, do the best you can, but things don't always fall where you want them to, and you're accepting and you continue on. I once watched two squirrels. They were playing, running around playing each other, chasing each other in circles and everything. And then they shot across the street. And unfortunately, one got hit by a car. The other one came back and was like running around them and like, come on, let's play. What's happening? What are you doing? What's the matter? And then eventually he just like went on his way. This is a very Taoist way. He had to accept. He didn't think about it. He just accepted it. They're more simple-minded. But he is playing with his friend, and now his friend passed. He's gone. Okay, then he continues on his way. Can you do that when you're challenged in life emotionally or any other way? Geez, you could even think of a self-defense situation, and God forbid you actually had to hurt somebody. Do you hate them now? Are you emotional towards them? Do you get them help? Do you think clearly and do what you can for that person that now is injured? I mean, it's funny how the mind works. Normally in that situation, you want to get out of the situation, but you can make a call and try to help them. Do it anonymously because you can bring trouble on yourself. But it's that mental aspect of anger and, the way we hate and it's just, this is not the Taoist way. More neutral in your thinking. Stay more to the central line. Don't take sides so strongly. Just stay more neutral. Try not to judge. Accept that everyone has their own perspective. Anyway, I want to open the floor to questions. Who has a question? You guys enjoyed that talk? Longer than expected. Lee Lao sure came in, gave some history. I know, Miss Campbell, you were there. You enjoyed it? What did you think? I wouldn't mind an opinion.
I thought it was very interesting that there was a sordid history behind the founder of Bagua, that was what came. I don't know why I found it surprising, but I thought it was very interesting, and it was kind of a story of atonement is the wrong word, but of a person turning their life around and making something good from their experiences. And I was just very surprised by the level of detail and how meaningful it was to Li Shi.
So Lao Shi means it's like Professor Smith.
Okay.
Lee Lao Shi is Professor Lee. It's kind of like saying that.
But just the level of detail of how sacred the names of the teachers were, that they were actually kept on stones and added as generations went on. I thought that was very moving, and it went on forever.
Yeah, it was longer than anticipated, but I think one of the things some people said was how passionate he was and excited he was getting. So I can appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with trying to stick to the time people expect. but he's, he's spent his whole life studying these things, and he's got so much to share. So when people are interested, you want to continue to share. So as far as what you just said, though, this is the thing. You think about going back to the 1800s, life was hard in a different way. And this was something that goes back, these arts, these teachings go back hundreds, if not thousands of years, passed down generation to generation. And a lot of times, most of the time, they were kept secret and just within families even. And he gave the reason for Dong Haichuan's secret because he was most likely an assassin for the emperor. And if he got caught, they would kill multiple generations. They'd kill his whole town that he's from. But there was also this keeping a secret just so you had sort of an advantage over others. I mean, it could be medical. People have to come to you if you're the one with the secret and you don't teach anybody else. It becomes very particular. So a martial art, if nobody knows what you're doing, you're much more surprising in self-defense, but also the benefits to your life, your health, your physical health, and even your spiritual life. It's something that people became very grateful if they were taught these things. They would take the information and they would practice days and weeks and months and even years. And it was such a special process and respected. It was a reverence for the older generation. So this is very much how the dojang has the pictures of Lu Shietian and Boknam Park, and even beyond Lu Shietian, before him. So I've always said that I will come in and I will salute the space with reverence and gratitude towards where it came from, because I wouldn't be there practicing. I wouldn't have the feeling that I have of a more centered mind, more clarity, physical health. I wouldn't have that without this art, in my opinion, because I know how I am if I'm practicing. I know how I am if I'm not practicing. That's why taking it on your own and practicing has a profound effect on you. And when you have that appreciation of where it came from, makes you want to practice more. And then if you learn the stories of what these people went through, assuming the story is accurate, the people in the picture where Lu Shietian, we believe, was in there, they all, I don't know if you understood the English, but they were all pretty much buried alive. They were killed when the Red Guard came through. And this is what Lu Shietian escaped from, went to Korea. So this whole lineage was wiped out. It's like a family line. It's like a name just wiped out completely. And Lu Shietian escaping to Korea allowed this family line to continue. So then there's that appreciation. How much pain did Lu Shietian experience losing his wife in one of the escapes? From what I heard, they were riding away on horseback and she was shot and killed right there. And he had to continue, or he would have been killed too. So when you think about those times, what people went through, I know for me, it weighs heavy on continuing, not just for myself, but also for those who want to train. And there is no doubt that this is a very effective martial art, and the martial side is you have to, it's not about punching and kicking, but your ability to defend yourself is part of learning this art. Plus, that's what gets you fully engaged, raises the consciousness. It's this threat of injury, right, of harm. And you overcome that with your abilities, with your practice physically and as well as mentally, to maintain that level of ability to perform. You can think of somebody, Olympics just went by. It's like, did they do the best they're capable of when everything was on the line and they were going for the gold medal? Because in a way, that's a similar kind of threat. But what happens to some of the greatest athletes is the mind, the thinking gets in the way, and they don't perform at their best when it's the most important time. And so that's why conquering the mind is such a essential part of martial arts training. Because if your life is on the line, can you perform as well as you've been trained? You only can rise to the level of your practice in order to be able to defend yourself. So that physical component brings so much intention and even a raising of the consciousness because of a real threat on your physical body. But that said, Bagua Zhang is so much more. And we have plenty of students just on the Qigong side. So the Qigong side was to support and develop the body structure, the mind-body connection by moving slow, to master the body mechanics, to support the martial side. That was the main reason, but the side effect became much better health, slowing down the aging process, mental clarity, which is also part of why it got involved with philosophical teachings. That was why the saying, you don't hand a gun to a baby. You don't want someone who's not mentally mature to know how to hurt people. You have to be able to discern when's the right time to utilize the art. And so that same mentality translates and transfers into emotional battles that we have. In other words, I don't have to beat someone up emotionally when I'm centered and confident in myself. I don't have to attack them. I don't have to step on people, bring other people down. In other words, another aspect of the martial arts is it makes the weak stronger, right? It can develop a weak person. It could be weak in health, but it could just be weak totally in body and mind. And it makes that person, through training, consistent training over time, to be much stronger, much more clear-minded, much more emotionally stable. But how about the strong person who came into this world with a lot of physical advantages? Well, it makes that person understand others better, because through something like meditation, you're going to develop more compassion. You'll have more empathy. And then the strong will help bring up the weak, so more people can be strong. You'll never make society stronger or better in any way by attacking the strong and bringing them down. What you need to do is have people develop themselves so well that they want to help those less with less advantages. You bring up the weak. You don't bring down the strong. You bring down the strong, everybody's weak. But if you bring up the weak, everybody's strong. Think about, what do you prefer? There's a mentality today in a lot of people. It reminds me of an old song. I was a fan of the band Rush, and they had a song, "The Trees." And the song is poetry about the maples complaining about the big oaks. You know, the oaks would take all the light, right? The maples would be in the shade, and the oaks were just hogging the sun. And so they complained, and they wrote a decree, and then all the trees were kept equal. They cut them all down. This does not bring happiness and satisfaction to society. It's the mentally strong, the clarity, the passion that helps um, progress, development. You take that away, there's no development. We'd still be in caves. And maybe to some that's a good thing. That would be closer to down. But it's the people who had some drive for something more that led to the kind of experiences that was meant to make life easier. Of course, we know didn't really make things easier. We're probably more stressed than ever because there's more demand on our time. But the concepts of how we can travel the world, right? Even going a few towns over hundreds of years ago would take days. Now you just jump in a car and you're there in a few hours. So there's amazing progress because of people who are more clear-minded, they have vision, and they have passion. If people like that were squashed, then we would just stay the same. And again, there is that argument: would that have been better? But I think going back to the talk with recognizing the names is that sort of a thing. It's like the heroes that inspire us. That's all I want to say on that subject. Another question. Miss Anagnastis, what comes to mind first before you leave? You said you got to go soon, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is not to be religious whatsoever. I'm not religious, spiritual, but I was thinking of the St. Francis prayer. It's one of my favorite prayers with what you're just saying. And on the board with the kids I work with today, one of my friends said, "I'd rather understand than be understood." And the whole prayer is about, where there's darkness, let me bring light. Where there is, sadness, let me bring joy. It's really just about, like you said, just giving and not looking for what you're going to get, but just giving to others. And I do believe it comes back to us. I mean, that's my personal belief, but it's just more about trying to be, as one of my friends always says, be the wood, bring I guess what you want to see in others, bring it within yourself and give it to others. So I don't know, I just love that prayer. And the St. Francis prayer, it's one of my favorites because it's all about that.
Yeah, very beautiful. And I would add that I'm a big believer in you first. Do you know what that means? You first. This is the idea, like you're in a plane, emergency landing. You need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can give it to someone else. If someone's drowning and I can't swim, how can I save them? I'll have us both drown. Like I have to have trained myself to be able to swim so then I can help somebody else one day. That whole concept, put your oxygen on first. So this is why martial arts training is about you first. By making yourself stronger, more clear-minded, more steady emotionally, you can then care for others. If we're stuck in basic survival, it's very difficult to do for others because we're just trying to survive ourselves. And the more we're in a state of fear, the more difficult it is for us actually to be more altruistic. People having a problem with being selfish, it's not accumulation. Okay, more. It's a matter of making yourself healthy, strong, clear-minded, emotionally stable. Now you can help others. So that is, where that prayer is coming from is making you think of others. But give that to someone who has nothing and struggles just to eat every day. That person's energy is on trying to eat. And unless someone else gives them food, you see? So the ability for me to be able to feed myself allows me then to possibly feed others. So I just wanted to add to the basic concept of that, of St. Francis. Is a poem, is a prayer. It's a prayer. What's it considered, a prayer?
Yeah. Yes.
You're still on, you can talk. Yeah, so as a prayer, sometimes the mentality is taken to extreme where nobody can have, I'd say I'm going back to, nobody can have anything. Well, then we can't help each other. We need to rely on some person that's way above to help the peons. We have to do the work. That's really what I'm getting at. We have to sit, quiet the mind. If your mind's not centered, how can you possibly be emotionally stable? You know, we have to be able to control our own breath so that we can control our own energy. Otherwise, we don't have the energy in order to do the things we need to do in life. Think about how many people are tired all the time. What's the story there? Do we know where we spend most of our energy? Who knows that? Nobody knows where we spend most of our energy? Let's see, Mr. Antomate, sorry. Where do we
Thinking,
spend most of our energy?
thinking so.
Yeah, that's good. You're paying attention as far as how many thoughts are you not even aware of that are constantly going and going and going? So meditation is the most important thing we do and the most difficult thing we do. The most difficult because it's constantly firing. Our mind is constantly firing, thinking, and we're not aware of it. So then a lot of people have come to me saying, "Oh, I've been meditating more, Shifu, and now my mind's busier than ever." And the only thing I can say is, well, it was always busy like that. You just weren't aware of it. So you're starting to develop your awareness of what's really going on in that head of yours. Now, who knows how to not think of something? Can you just not think of something? You know, the old pink elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant. Everybody's thinking of a pink elephant. How do you not think of a pink elephant? Can you stop thinking of a pink elephant? Who can stop? Think of something bad happened to you that stays in your memory. Think of a current worry or concern that you have in your life. Is it consuming you? So the only way to control your thoughts is to think of what you choose instead of what someone else put in there. Someone or something or a happening being put in there. Like a song that won't leave. You have a bad thought that keeps happening. It's a worry, or my child, or think of something that makes you feel better. If there's nothing you can do right now about that subject, then control your thoughts by focusing on what you choose. Think of something else. You can't stop thinking of something, but you can think of something else. And if you focus more intently and you actually feel how that thing makes you feel, you actually, as if you're with that. Let's say it's a smiling baby or a puppy licking your face. What's the feeling? It brings joy. So now you can't feel bad while you're feeling joy. So you focus on that thing. That's how you can control your mind. Think of what you choose. This is a very powerful skill to have. If it was a martial situation, what should you be thinking of? Well, first of all, if you're worried you might get hurt, you're already in your own way. The person who goes, I mentioned the Olympics earlier. So the person who goes into the Olympics, something that was learned that I fully believe came from martial arts. You'll see them with the deep breath. They'll take a breath before they compete. Why did they do that? Okay, have a good night. Why did they do that? Okay, so you've trained 1,000 times in techniques, some techniques. Why don't you trust your training? If you have to defend yourself, you can't be thinking about what to do. My daughter's a pitcher. That's the stuff I taught her. Through martial arts, she learned it, and now I showed her how to apply it to pitching. Pitching is a high stress situation. You know, it's like all up to her, pretty much. In that moment, she has to throw a strike, for example. So how does her practice come out in the moment? The person has to defend their life. How does it come out best in the moment? Person wants to perform for Olympics. How does it come out best in the moment? So if you did the training, you should trust your training, and you just center yourself. So that breath should be a breath to focus in the moment. You can focus on the belly, you can focus on your feet, but you focus in the moment. You feel in the moment, and then whatever skills you have just come out. But if you try to think about it, if it's an attack on you, right, and you're scared, and then you try to like look at the hands and look at the feet and try to, what do I see? What do I see? You actually slow your reaction down. So we still have a crazy iguana. And it just happened again. I'm realizing that in the wintertime, he gets angry. And we were doing just fine. And I gave him some extra little strawberry and stuff, treating him nice. Everything's fine. And then I put him in his cage. And I had to clean something. And I see his position. And I never take any chances again, because in the past I was not smart that way. A couple times. And this sucker tried to get me. With his mouth open, he just, in an instant, he just jumped at me. And I went, pop, popped him right in the side of the head, and he fell back into his cage. Completely unexpected. But I practiced a lot. And these things just come out like that. It's an instant reaction. And when it happens, I laugh, because it confirms the training's real. I had no chance to think about, oh my God, he's going to attack me. No, it was just, he was on his way. Pop. So when you learn your defenses and you do them enough, it just, you learn, your body moves without thought. How many emotional buttons do you have that get pushed without thought? Somebody says the wrong thing, and then you feel a certain way, and you blame them. You made me feel that. See, the iguana doesn't care. It just, I don't know what the problem was, but he wanted to something, right? He wanted to bite. Seemed like. So blaming him doesn't help. I have to always be alert to protect myself. If somebody has a bad day and says the wrong thing to you and then ruins yours, I'm sorry, but you allowed it. You don't have to let someone else control your thoughts. And yes, there's a time to walk away from somebody who's in a bad mood or not treating you the way you deserve to be treated or want to be treated. If you don't want to be treated that way, leave the situation. Change the situation. Staying there and arguing doesn't help. And then blaming them for how they made you feel is very common. I feel flaw in our nature that many people do. It's just like in the martial arts and practice. If I get punched in the nose, I blame me. If that iguana got me, I blame me. You see? Can you do that? It's in practice. If I get punched in the nose, my question should be not, hey, why did you punch me in the nose? Why don't you have any control? My question should be, why didn't I defend? Why didn't that reflex happen? And so I would go back to the drawing board and visualize the punch and my defense 1,000 times until there's no thought, it's there. You want to control your thoughts, someone else says the wrong thing to you, you can think of something better and you can remove yourself from the situation. I know, simple, but not easy. But ultimately, we have to take responsibility to how we feel, our health, the things we're taking care of. You know, when things don't go right, do you reevaluate and adjust and try to change? Or do you just keep doing the same thing? Don't forget the definition of insanity. It's you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. We should be better than that. So with that said, let's go to meditation.